For 5 long years I carried the weight of my vows like chains around my heart, holding on to the promise I made before God and man to love and care for my husband, Kweku, in sickness and in health, till death did us part. Though I never imagined the sickness would come so soon, nor that it would twist my life into a tale of sacrifice, slow-burning passion, and quiet betrayal. I was only 23 when we married, full of laughter and honeyed dreams, and Kweku was the man every girl in our village of Essium wished to have. A cocoa farmer with a wide smile, strong arms, and the kind of kiss that could melt your spine on the spot. Our romance was once fire. Nights spent tangled in sweaty sheets and whispered promises under the mosquito net, our bodies dancing like flames feeding each other. But everything changed the night his motorbike collided with an oil truck on the rain-slicked highway near Cape Coast. He came back to me broken, paralyzed from the waist down. His once proud stride replaced by a wheelchair that creaked in sorrow. And from that day forward, I was not just his wife but his legs, his hands, his nurse, his cook, his cleaner, and his quiet, aching shadow. Our friends faded. His brothers who used to drink palm wine with him at the riverside disappeared one by one, and I became the only one left, rising before the rooster crowed to bathe his limp body, massage his legs, and feed him porridge with trembling hands while forcing back tears that burned like hot oil behind my eyes. I washed his bedsheets stained with urine, smiled when he threw tantrums like a child, and still wore perfume at night hoping he'd look at me like he used to, like a woman and not just a caretaker. But days turned to months and months into years, and the fire in our marriage cooled to ash. There were days I wanted to run, to scream at the skies for the life I lost, but then I'd see him sitting alone by the window, his eyes empty, and I'd feel guilty for even breathing. But loneliness is a hungry thing, and desire a fire that does not die quietly. I buried mine under chores and prayers, but my body remembered what it felt like to be wanted, touched, devoured like ripe mango in the heat of the dry season. Sometimes in the deep of night I'd lie awake, my skin on fire, imagining Kweku the way he once was, strong and urgent, or worse, I'd dream of faceless men whose hands knew where to touch, and wake up drenched in sweat and shame. Then came Kwabena, Kweku's younger cousin, who returned from Accra with muscles carved like a god and a voice that could make your knees tremble. And when he moved into our compound to help take care of his elder brother, I felt something in me shift. He was respectful, quiet, and always kept his distance, but when our fingers brushed over the calabash one afternoon, the jolt that went through me made me dizzy. I told myself it was wrong, that I was a wife and a nurse, not a woman to be touched, but the hunger in me had become a beast. Still I held firm, even when I caught him watching me hang clothes with a gaze that burned, even when he offered to help wash Kweku and our hands met over soapy water, our breath catching like we both felt the weight of something forbidden. Then came the night that shattered everything, when I rose from sleep to use the outdoor toilet and passed by the window to Kweku's room, where I heard him laughing over the phone with someone. His voice cruel and mocking, saying, "Of course she stayed. Where else would a useless village girl go? She's my free servant now. I don't even need to touch her." My heart stopped. My knees gave out. I crouched under the window, bile rising in my throat, the truth slicing through me like a blade. All my love, all my loyalty, all my sacrifice, seen not as devotion but as duty, as servitude. That night something in me died, and something else, fierce, wild, and starved, was born. When I went back into the house, I didn't cry. I bathed him the next morning with steady hands, fed him millet porridge with a smile, but my heart had turned cold, my soul already walking away. I looked at Kwabena that afternoon as he chopped firewood, sweat glistening on his back like beads of sunlight, and this time I didn't look away. Something in my gaze made him pause, axe midair, his chest rising as he stared at me, and in that moment I knew this story was about to change forever. From the moment I looked at Kwabena with eyes that no longer saw him as just Kweku's cousin but as the man who unknowingly lit the fire inside me again, I knew I had crossed an invisible line, one that would burn me alive or set me free. That evening I walked differently, slower, swaying gently as I passed him by the cassava shed, daring him to see what I no longer wanted to hide. The woman beneath the apron, beneath the sorrow, beneath the years of cold nights and unspoken grief. He watched me, his eyes full of conflict and curiosity, and for the first time in years I felt wanted. Not as a duty, not as someone tolerated, but as a woman who could still stir the blood in a man's veins. That night I couldn't sleep. My body was restless, my mind a storm of betrayal, guilt, and desire. I kept hearing Kweku's voice in my head. She's my free servant now, like a whip across my back. I lay next to him in silence, his back to me, his legs lifeless under the sheets while my own thighs throbbed with a need I had buried for years. I slipped out quietly, my heart pounding, and stood in the courtyard beneath the stars, the cool wind brushing against my thin night wrapper. And then he appeared. Kwabena, shirtless, barefoot, carrying a gourd of palm wine and eyes that said he had also not slept. We didn't speak. We just stared. The silence between us crackled with something ancient and dangerous. I turned to leave, but he called my name. Efua. And it was the way he said it, like a prayer, that made me stop. You deserve to be seen, he said. My chest rose and fell, tears stinging my eyes because it had been so long since someone looked at me like I mattered. I walked toward him, slowly, as if in a trance, and when he reached out and touched my cheek, I didn't pull away. His hands were warm, calloused, trembling slightly as they cupped my face, and before I could speak, his lips were on mine, gentle at first, then deeper, fuller, as if trying to drink in all the loneliness I had been carrying. My knees buckled, and he caught me, lifting me effortlessly in his arms like I weighed nothing, like I was not a woman broken by years of sacrifice but someone soft, alive, and deserving of love. He carried me into the old and used hut beside the yam barn, where the moonlight poured through the cracks in the roof like silver fire. There, on a mattress that smelled of forgotten stories, he undressed me slowly, his fingers tracing every scar, every stretch mark, every place Kweku no longer saw. He kissed my collarbone, my stomach, the inside of my thighs with a reverence that made me weep. I had forgotten what it was to be worshipped. Our bodies moved together like we had known each other in a past life, like this was not sin but salvation. I clung to him, nails digging into his back, whispering his name over and over like a chant as waves of pleasure tore through me, drowning the years of numbness. And when it was over, he held me like I was fragile and sacred, brushing the tears from my cheeks and whispering things I hadn't heard in years. You're beautiful. You deserve happiness. I see you. Guilt stabbed at me in the quiet, but it was quickly overtaken by a fierce sense of reclaiming myself. I wasn't just Kweku's wife. I wasn't just a servant. I was a woman who had given everything and received nothing but mockery. In the days that followed, I moved like a shadow through the house, performing my duties with robotic precision while my soul blossomed in secret. Kwabena and I became fire and smoke. Hidden touches, silent glances, stolen kisses behind the plantain trees. He would find excuses to stay near me, to help with chores Kweku could no longer do, and every night after Kweku slept, we met in the hut like two stars crashing in the dark. He made me feel alive, dangerous, loved. But I was no fool. I knew the walls had ears, and tongues in this village wagged like dogs. I told him we had to be careful. He agreed, but I saw the hunger in his eyes growing, saw the jealousy burning whenever he watched me feed Kweku or wipe his mouth, and though he said nothing, I could feel the storm building. Then came the day my monthly bleeding didn't come. I waited. Another week passed. My body felt strange. Heavier, warmer, more sensitive. The truth hit me like a lightning bolt. I was pregnant. My hands trembled as I held the herbs meant to bring back late periods, but something in me refused to drink them. This child was conceived in passion, not duty. In love, not pity. It was mine and his. That night I told Kwabena, and his face broke into a stunned smile, then fear, then fierce joy. We have to leave, he whispered. We can start over, away from this place, away from your pain. But I shook my head. I wasn't running anymore. I had given 5 years of my life to a man who saw me as a servant. Now I would take my life back, in full view of the sun. Not yet, I told him. Let the truth reveal itself. Let him see what he threw away. And in that moment I became something else. Not just a woman, not just a lover, but a force of reckoning, a storm dressed in a wrapper, carrying life inside me and fire in my soul. The days that followed were a silent war between what had been and what was coming, between the woman I had been for 5 years, loyal, invisible, broken, and the woman now standing in her own skin, no longer willing to carry pain in silence. I moved about the house with grace and deadly calm, performing my duties to Kweku with precision, bathing him, feeding him, changing his bedsheets and smiling when needed, but the fire inside me burned brighter each day, fueled by the growing life in my belly and the slow, burning desire for freedom. My body changed, my breasts fuller, my waist thickening slightly, my skin glowing with the deep magic of creation, and yet Kweku noticed nothing. Or maybe he saw but chose to ignore, because a servant's body was not his concern anymore. But whispers began to stir. Auntie Acua from next door asked if I was eating better now, chuckling at my pregnancy cheeks. The herbal woman at the market gave me a knowing glance and slipped me roots meant to ease childbirth. Even the village pastor's wife touched my shoulder and said, "God has a way of blessing those who suffer in silence." I simply smiled. Kwabena, meanwhile, became more protective, more tense, shadowing me wherever I went, watching every man who greeted me as though the entire village was a threat. At night, in the old yam hut, he kissed the stretch of skin over my stomach and whispered dreams about a life far away, where I wouldn't have to hide my laughter or tiptoe through my own joy. But I wasn't done here.
Well,
I needed Kweku to feel what I had felt, the slow erosion of dignity, the sharp sting of being discarded, the agony of watching love walk away without explanation. And so I waited like a tigress crouching in tall grass. The opportunity came on the day of Kweku's late father's memorial, when the compound filled with relatives, drummers, and neighbors bearing food and gossip. Everyone came, clad in black and red, their voices thick with ceremonial grief and curiosity. I wore my best wrapper, the emerald green one with golden leaves, and tied my headscarf high, exposing the proud swell of my belly for all to see. Gasps followed me like shadows as I moved through the crowd, serving drinks, pouring palm wine with a gentle smile, my waist beads peeking just beneath my blouse. Kweku, perched in his wheelchair like a forgotten king, stared at me in stunned silence, his eyes darting to my stomach and then away, like the truth was too heavy for his pride to hold. "Efua," he whispered when I leaned down to serve him fufu. What is this?" I looked into his eyes, those same eyes that once told me I was his world, and later told someone else I was just a free servant, and I smiled. "A child," I said simply, my voice soft but slicing like a machete. "A gift I gave myself since you were done giving." Gasps erupted behind us, women covered their mouths, old men cleared their throats. Kwabena stood at the edge of the compound, tense like a coiled rope, ready to pull me out if things turned dangerous. But Kweku didn't speak. His mouth opened and closed like a fish, and for once, I saw in his face the true weight of all that had happened, the betrayal not of a wife, but of a woman who had been faithful beyond reason. "How dare you?" he began, but I cut him off. "No," I said. "How dare you? For 5 years I wiped your drool, your tears, your filth. I carried your shame and smiled. I bathed your limp body and waited for scraps of affection. I held my breath for you while dying inside. And when I heard you call me your servant, something inside me broke so loudly I'm surprised you didn't hear it." I straightened, my hands resting on my belly like a shield. "This child is mine. Mine and the man who reminded me that I am still a woman. A woman worth touching. Worth loving." The crowd murmured like waves against the shore, some nodding in agreement, others whispering behind their hands. But I no longer feared their judgment. My truth was louder than their shame. Kweku slumped in his chair, speechless, the power he once held over me dissolving like salt in rain. Later that evening, as the compound emptied, I packed my things with Kwabena by my side. I didn't take much. Just my clothes, the wrapper my mother gave me before she died, my cooking pots, and the wooden stool where I used to sit and cry at night. Kwabena carried them silently, his presence a wall of comfort behind me. As we stepped out into the dusk, Kweku called after me, his voice cracking like dry leaves. "Efua, please." I paused, turned, and looked at the man I once loved more than myself. I hope one day you understand, I said. Love is not owed. It is earned. And once lost, it cannot be forced back. And with that I walked away, head high, feet bare, belly full of new life and heart finally light. We settled in a small town by the river, far from the judgmental eyes of Essium, where I opened a small food joint with the savings I had hidden over the years. Quabina built a house with his own hands, and when our daughter arrived, her cry was the first sound in years that brought me tears of pure joy. I named her Naira, blessing, because that's what she was. Not just a child born of passion, but proof that from the ashes of pain, something beautiful can rise. Quabina asked me to marry him under the moonlight one evening, his voice shaking with hope. And though I had sworn I would never be anyone's wife again, I said yes, not because I needed saving, but because I had finally saved myself. And every night, when he held me like I was something precious, when his touch reminded me that I was still alive, I whispered thanks to the woman I had once been, the silent, suffering Efua, for surviving long enough to become the woman I am now.